How to never feel embarrassed again. Imagine for a moment the most uncomfortable times in your life. Those instances when all you wanted was to disappear, to escape the shame and embarrassment. Who hasn't felt their face flush or their heart race, fearing the judgment of others? It's as if, in seconds, the whole world is watching you, and you are the only one who isn't measuring up. But what if I told you that those moments, which seem to trap you in invisible chains, could be the key to something greater? What if, instead of avoiding them, you could transform them into one of your greatest strengths? The ancient Stoic philosophers, men who faced monumental challenges, discovered timeless secrets to confront these situations, and their teachings still resonate today. What they taught wasn't about hiding from shame, but about using it, rewriting the story. And that's exactly what we'll talk about today. If you've ever found yourself replaying a mistake in your head, reliving that embarrassing moment repeatedly, or if you feel paralyzed by the fear of making another one, know that this video can completely change the way you face these challenges. You are about to discover that shame is not an end, but an invitation to live authentically, unshackled, with courage and resilience. So if you're ready to leave behind the weight of other people's opinions and walk toward a lighter and truer life, stay with me and drop a "I'm ready" in the comments. What follows could be the turning point you've been waiting for. But let's begin. How many times have you wanted to disappear after an embarrassing moment? Maybe you said something that sounded strange, tripped in front of others, or made that public mistake that seemed unforgivable. The truth is, we've all been through those moments that make us feel small, vulnerable, and trapped by the fear of others' judgment. But what if I told you that these moments of embarrassment don't have to define you, that there's a way to turn that shame into strength? Ancient but incredibly relevant today, Stoic philosophy teaches us just that. The Stoics, men who lived centuries ago, faced monumental challenges and discovered secrets for dealing with emotions and external pressures. For them, true power wasn't in controlling what others thought, but in mastering how we react to these situations. Imagine for a moment if you could face every embarrassing situation not as an obstacle, but as an opportunity, an invitation to grow, to become even stronger. Embarrassment at its core is just a reaction to what society has taught us to value, expectations that often don't make sense for who we really are. And that's where Stoicism comes in. It reminds us that others' judgments have no power over us unless we allow them to. Have you ever stopped to think about how many times you felt embarrassed simply because you thought you didn't fit into someone else's expectations? How many of those expectations are really yours, and how many were imposed by social norms we never questioned? Stoic philosophy challenges us to reflect on this and to find our true value within ourselves. So today, I invite you to take a step forward. The next time that feeling of shame appears, remember that you have the power to react differently. You can choose to turn that moment into a chance to show your true strength. And when you do, something incredible happens. You free yourself from the weight of external expectations and discover a new way of living with more authenticity and courage. And now, with this new perspective, we begin to realize that embarrassment doesn't have to be a burden, but rather an opportunity, a shift in how we see ourselves and, more importantly, how we respond to the world around us. But to take that next step and truly transform these uncomfortable moments, we need to understand something deeper. Where does this shame we carry come from? Why do we feel this way in the first place? Here's where the real discovery begins. Because, believe it or not, no one is born feeling ashamed. This feeling isn't part of who we are from the start. It's something we learn throughout life. And by understanding this, we can start to peel back the layers of expectations society has placed on us. From a young age, we are surrounded by rules, by social norms that shape how we see the world, and, more importantly, ourselves. Quickly, Without even realizing it, we start to absorb what others say is right or wrong, what's acceptable or a cause for embarrassment. These rules seem so natural that we often don't even stop to question them. But where do they come from anyway? And why do they affect us so much? These norms, these expectations, are often like old, dusty books that we follow blindly without even knowing who wrote them. Things passed down from generation to generation, reflecting ideas that may have nothing to do with who we really are. And this is where Stoicism gives us a powerful key. It teaches us to question these rules, to see that embarrassment is often the result of judgments that have no basis in our true essence. Think of the last time you felt embarrassed. Was it because you did something that really went against your values? Or was it because you feared what others might think? Most of the time, it's not the event itself that causes us embarrassment, but the expectation of how we will be seen. The Stoics believed that true value doesn't lie in blindly following social norms, but in living according to our own virtue and reason. They encourage us to question these external standards and ask, does this really reflect who I am? Is this aligned with my values? Because in the end, what truly matters is not others' opinions, but our own judgment based on what's genuinely important to us. And here's where we start to discover the true power behind overcoming embarrassment. It's not about pleasing everyone or following the rules imposed by others. It's about reconnecting with who you really are, living in tune with your own principles, not the arbitrary expectations of the world. So, before you let yourself be weighed down by shame, ask yourself, does this burden I'm carrying really make sense? Or am I just repeating something that was imposed on me? By doing this, you begin to free yourself little by little from the layers of judgment that society has placed upon you. Now that we understand how embarrassment is shaped by social norms, the next question we need to ask is, why do we allow external judgment to have so much power over us? The truth is that we live in a society where opinions seem to carry weight over everything. What others think of us seems to determine whether we are successful, respected, or even loved. But should it really be this way? Do these judgments really have the power we think they do, or are we the ones giving them that power? Here, Stoic philosophy offers an answer that is both simple and liberating. External judgments only have power if we allow them. Think about it. Have you ever been in a situation where someone's comment or criticism deeply affected you? Maybe you even changed your behavior because of it. But what the Stoics teach us is that true strength doesn't lie in trying to control what others think, but in controlling how we react. Other people's judgments in themselves have no real value. They are merely perceptions, temporary opinions of people who are often reflecting their own insecurities and fears. When we understand this, we can take a step back and separate these judgments from our emotional reaction. The key here is control over our own perceptions, and this is something that is entirely within our power. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus reminds us, it is not events that disturb us, but our opinion about them. This means that by changing the way we perceive these judgments, we change how they affect us. And by doing so, we begin to base our worth no longer on what others say, but on what we ourselves believe to be right and true. When you begin to live according to your own values, those you consciously choose and that reflect your true essence, others' opinions become secondary. You discover that your self-esteem no longer needs to be tied to external approval, because in the end, the only judgment that truly matters is your own, and that judgment should be based on integrity, virtue, and the pursuit of an authentic life. So the next time someone judges or criticizes you, ask yourself, does this really matter? Does this judgment align with my values, or is it just a passing opinion from someone who doesn't know my journey? When you make that distinction, what was once a blow to your self-esteem becomes an opportunity to reaffirm your inner strength. And remember, the Stoics never said this would be easy. Controlling our reactions is a daily practice, but every time we choose to respond calmly, with our minds centered on our values, we take another step toward true emotional freedom. Now that we understand how external judgments can lose their power over us, a new question arises. If we shouldn't be guided by others' expectations, what should guide our actions instead? The answer is both simple and profound: authenticity. But what does it mean to be authentic, especially from the perspective of Stoic philosophy? Being authentic is not acting on impulse or doing whatever you feel like without considering the consequences. On the contrary, authenticity in Stoicism is living in alignment with reason and virtue. This means that every action we take should be in harmony with the principles that truly matter to us, those that come from our essence, not from external pressures. Take a moment to think. How many times have you found yourself doing something you didn't want to just to fit in, to be accepted? How many times have you had to silence your true voice to please others? Stoicism challenges us to break this cycle. It invites us to find and follow what we truly believe in, what aligns with our deepest values. This is true authenticity, acting consciously guided by solid principles like integrity, justice, and wisdom. And most importantly, it means living in such a way that at the end of the day, you can look in the mirror and feel proud of your choices because they reflect who you really are. Being authentic, in the light of Stoicism, is a constant exercise in introspection and self-awareness. It means constantly asking, is what I'm doing reflective of my values, or am I just going with the flow of what others expect of me? This process isn't about ignoring others' feelings or acting selfishly, but about finding balance. It's about prioritizing moral integrity over social approval. Imagine being in a situation where you disagree with something, but everyone around you seems to agree. The instinctive response might be to stay silent to avoid discomfort. But the authentic Stoic chooses to act according to their conscience, with courage and conviction, unafraid of displeasing or seeming different. This authenticity generates deep freedom because once you align with who you truly are, external standards become irrelevant. You free yourself from the need to please, and your actions are guided by what you know to be right. This creates an inner strength that cannot be shaken by criticism, rejection, or passing trends. Life then becomes an expression of your true essence. You don't act to impress or fit in, but to honor the person you really are. And that's the true power of living authentically. A life where your actions and virtues walk hand in hand, reflecting your true self. By following this path, you also inspire others to do the same. Because deep down, we all desire that freedom. We all seek the chance to be who we really are, without masks, without fear. By living with authenticity, you not only transform your own life, but also create a space where others feel safe to do the same. So the question remains, are you ready to live according to your true nature, without being tied down by others' expectations? Now that we begin to understand the value of authenticity and living according to our own values, there's something we need to address before moving forward: how to deal with our mistakes and embarrassing moments from the past. Because, let's be honest, we've all said or done things we're not proud of, and often these moments haunt us, holding us in the same place, preventing our growth. But here's the great truth that Stoicism offers us: making mistakes is part of human nature. And more than that, every mistake, every embarrassing moment is a disguised opportunity, a chance to learn, to get to know ourselves better, to grow. In Stoicism, the focus is not on the mistake itself, but on what you do afterward. How many times have you found yourself replaying that embarrassing moment in your mind, like a movie you can't turn off? That inner critical voice can be relentless, making us believe we should have done everything perfectly. But what the Stoics teach us is that being stuck in these thoughts only prevents us from moving forward. The key to true peace lies in something many of us forget to practice: forgiveness, especially self-forgiveness. Forgiving yourself isn't about ignoring or minimizing the mistake. It's about acknowledging it, learning from it, and then moving on. By forgiving ourselves, we make room for something essential: growth. Without that forgiveness, we remain trapped in the past, constantly reliving the same mistake without allowing ourselves to improve. The Stoics remind us that the past cannot be changed. What has happened has happened. All we have is the present, the now, and what we decide to do with it. This moment, this exact moment, is your opportunity to leave behind the weight of past mistakes and start building something new. Every day, every situation we face is a chance to apply what we've learned and to become better. And more, forgiving yourself is an act of courage. It requires looking at your own mistakes head-on, without excuses, but also without the cruelty of destructive self-criticism. This is what the Stoics call rational analysis. It's about recognizing where you went wrong, adjusting your behavior for the future, and instead of punishing yourself, allowing yourself to grow. Each time you forgive yourself, you free yourself. You free yourself from the guilt that holds you back, from the chains of the past, and make space for what truly matters: your evolution. And in the process, you discover a powerful truth: that forgiveness is not weakness, but one of the greatest strengths we can have. It allows us to continue the journey with more wisdom and less weight on our backs. So, the next time you feel that pang of shame or regret over something in the past, remember, you have the power to forgive yourself, not to forget, but to grow. After all, it's not the mistake that defines who you are, but what you do after it. And now, the question remains: are you ready to forgive yourself and move forward with your head held high toward your own growth? Now that we understand the power of self-forgiveness and how it frees us to grow, it's time to take it a step further. Because, let's be realistic, challenges and embarrassing moments will continue to happen. Life will always test us. But what happens if we start to see these challenges in a different way? What if, instead of avoiding or fearing them, we use these situations to practice something much deeper? For the Stoics, every challenge, whether it's an unexpected obstacle or that moment that makes you want to disappear, is an opportunity. And not just any opportunity, but a chance to practice essential virtues like courage, wisdom, and resilience. Those moments that often make us feel small are actually invitations to grow, to become stronger, and to refine who we are. Think about the last challenge you faced. Maybe it was public criticism, a mistake at work, or even a heated argument. Stoicism teaches us that instead of being dominated by the emotion of the moment, we can view these situations as an opportunity to practice what the Stoics call arete, moral excellence. Now, how can we prepare for these challenges so that when they appear, our reaction isn't panic, but calm and clarity? Here comes an extremely powerful Stoic practice called premeditatio malorum, or the premeditation of evils. The concept is simple. The Stoics believed that by mentally anticipating the difficulties that may arise, we are already preparing to face them with more serenity and control. This doesn't mean being pessimistic or living in constant expectation of the worst, but rather preparing mentally and emotionally for challenging situations. By doing so, you reduce the shock when something actually happens. When you've already imagined what could go wrong, the mistake, the criticism, the rejection, and visualize yourself responding calmly and rationally, you're strengthening your mind for when these situations arise in real life. Think of it as emotional training. Just as we prepare physically for a race, we can train our minds for the challenges that will inevitably come. And when they appear, instead of being shaken, We are ready. We are ready to respond with courage, wisdom, and the resilience that the Stoics so valued. Every challenge then becomes an opportunity to grow. And more than that, these moments teach us about our own limits, our fears, and our strengths. They show us who we really are when the pressure is on, and that's where true transformation happens. So, the next time you find yourself in a challenging or embarrassing situation, take a pause. Remember that this moment, as uncomfortable as it may seem, is a chance to practice the virtues that will strengthen you. Remember the Stoic practice of visualizing challenges and being prepared to face them with dignity and control. So, the question is, are you ready to turn every challenge into a stepping stone toward your best version? To see these moments not as obstacles, but as opportunities to practice the courage and resilience that already exist within you? After everything we've discussed so far, from forgiveness to facing challenges, we arrive at one of the most powerful lessons Stoicism offers: the importance of owning your story. Because in the end, what truly defines who we are isn't the moments of success, but how we deal with our mistakes, failures, and yes, even embarrassing moments. Many times we spend our lives trying to escape these parts of ourselves. We want to bury past mistakes, distance ourselves from moments of shame, as if hiding them would protect us. But the truth is that these experiences, as painful as they may have been, are an essential part of who we are. And more than that, they are important parts of our growth. The Stoics teach us that instead of being ashamed of our mistakes and embarrassing moments, we should see them as bricks in the construction of our character. Every stumble, every moment of embarrassment is an opportunity to learn and evolve. When you own your complete story, without omitting the difficult parts, you become invulnerable to others' judgment, because, in the end, you are no longer trying to hide who you are. You are living authentically with all your imperfections. Reflect for a moment. How many times have you tried to hide a part of your story for fear of being judged? How many times have you thought that if people knew about a certain mistake of yours, they would see you differently? The truth is, running away from those pieces of the past only keeps us trapped in them. The more we try to hide, the more we become prisoners of that shame. But Stoicism offers us an alternative. Rewrite the narrative. Instead of seeing those moments as blemishes on your past, why not see them as steps that led to growth? When you look at your story through this lens, every mistake becomes a lesson, every failure transforms into a learning opportunity, and suddenly, what once seemed like a burden becomes a source of strength. By owning your story, you also regain control over it. You are no longer at the mercy of what others might think or say about you because you have already accepted your own journey. There is nothing more powerful than looking at your own life and saying, yes, I made mistakes. Yes, I had tough moments, but all of that brought me here, and I am stronger because of it. When you embrace your story fully, without fear or shame, something incredible happens. You free yourself. And that freedom not only brings you inner peace, but also inspires others to do the same. Because we all have stories. We all carry scars and moments we'd rather forget. But when we see someone embrace their own story with pride, we are reminded that we too can do the same. So the next time you find yourself thinking about a mistake or an embarrassing moment from the past, remember, that's just a chapter in your story. It doesn't define you, but it's part of who you've become. And by owning your story fully, you give yourself the most precious gift of all, the freedom to be exactly who you are, with all the lessons life has taught you. The question now is, are you ready to embrace your story and turn even the hardest moments into strength? Now that we've discussed the power of owning our story, it's time to talk about something that keeps us from moving forward, the mental prisons we create for ourselves. These prisons, made of external judgments and constant self-criticism, can keep us trapped in thought patterns that sabotage our growth. But here's the question: how can we free ourselves? Imagine for a moment the invisible barriers you've built over the years. They are made of social expectations, the fear of what others will think, the critical voices that echo in your mind whenever you try to be authentic. Every time you hesitate, every time you shrink or silence your own voice, you're feeding these prisons. And the most curious part? Many of these barriers have no basis in reality. They are constructed by our perceptions and the pressures we choose to carry. But if we created these prisons, we also hold the key to escape them. Stoic philosophy teaches us that true freedom doesn't come from changing the external world, but from mastering our internal world. It is within our mind that the power of liberation resides. Stoics like Marcus Aurelius and Epictetus understood something profound. It is not external events that cause us suffering, but how we react to them. When we let external judgments define us, or when we cling to self-criticism, we are voluntarily placing ourselves in a prison. And worse, this prison is not real. It is built with the walls of fear and insecurity, and with the constant need for external approval. Stop and think. How many times have you not done something out of fear of being judged? How many opportunities have you missed because you were trapped in the idea that you weren't good enough? And what if, for a moment, you could see beyond these limitations? The freedom that Stoicism offers begins with understanding that you don't need to live according to others' expectations. The key is detaching from these external pressures and realizing that what really matters is how you live according to your own values. Epictetus said, "It is not things that upset us, but our opinion of them." This simple thought is transformative. If others' judgments are just opinions and not absolute truths, why give them so much power? Similarly, when we are too harsh on ourselves, we forget that excessive self-criticism is just a distortion of our own perception. Freeing ourselves from these mental prisons requires a change in perspective. We need to stop looking outward for validation and instead turn inward. Ask yourself, am I living according to what I believe? Do my actions reflect my values? When you focus on living in tune with your essence, external judgments lose their strength. True freedom comes when you stop trying to please everyone and start living for yourself, for what you believe to be right. And of course, this journey of liberation is ongoing. It's not about a single moment of enlightenment, but a daily practice of detachment. Every time you face a fear, a criticism, or an insecurity and choose not to let it control you, you're taking another step toward freedom. So the question remains, are you ready to break these mental prisons, to leave behind the judgments that hold you back and embrace the true freedom that comes from within? Because in the end, you have the key. You always have. We've reached the final point of this journey, and perhaps the most important of all, living life on your own terms. After understanding the power of owning your story and freeing yourself from mental prisons, the next step is to take control of your life. But what does that mean in practice? How does one live authentically without being swayed by society's expectations? The Stoics teach us that to live fully, we need to align our actions with our own values, not with the values that society, family, or others impose on us. Living on your own terms is essentially having clarity about what you believe, what truly matters to you, and having the courage to follow that path, even if it means swimming against the current. How many times have you found yourself living a life that doesn't really feel like yours, fulfilling expectations you never questioned, following a path that deep down doesn't resonate with who you are? For many, this has become a pattern. But here's the truth. When you live trying to please others, you end up losing yourself, and that is one of life's greatest traps. Stoicism offers us a way out. Focus on what we can control. We cannot control what others think or do, but we have full control over our own actions, thoughts, and reactions. And that's all that really matters. When you understand this, a new freedom emerges. You no longer need to live tied to the desire to please or to be accepted because your value is within you. It is defined by how you live according to your own principles. And this authentic life, lived on your own terms, doesn't mean that everything will be easy. In fact, living with integrity, following your values, often requires courage. It means making choices that won't always be popular or understood by others. But it also means living with a deep sense of peace because you know you're being true to who you really are. Think about all the areas of your life where you can apply this principle. Your career choices, your relationships, how you express yourself in the world. When you start aligning these choices with what truly matters to you, something powerful happens. You stop being guided by the tides of external opinions and start being moved by an internal compass that always leads you in the right direction. And that's the true beauty of living on your own terms. The ability to look in the mirror and feel proud of the person you are becoming because your actions reflect who you really are. It's no longer about seeking approval or validation. It's about living with integrity, knowing that your decisions are based on your deepest values. Throughout this journey, we've seen that the Stoics didn't live trying to please others. They lived based on their virtues, aware that what truly matters is how you act, how you think, and how you respond to the world around you. And that's exactly what I invite you to do. Live a brave, true, and authentic life. A life where you control what you can, your actions and reactions, and detach from what you cannot control, others' opinions and judgments. So the final question I ask you is, are you ready to live life on your own terms? To follow the path that resonates with your true self without worrying about what others will think? Because in the end, this is your journey, and it deserves to be lived with all the authenticity and courage you already have within you. We've reached the end of this journey, but what we've discussed here is just the beginning of something much greater. Stoic philosophy shows us that true strength comes from within, from the way we choose to face the world, deal with challenges, and live according to our values. Every step you take toward authenticity, forgiveness, and mental freedom, you'll be shaping a life that is truly yours, guided by Stoic wisdom. Remember, you are not alone on this path. Every mistake, every moment of embarrassment, and every challenge is an opportunity to grow, to know yourself better, and to live more fully and truly. Living on your own terms is a continuous journey, and each day gives you the chance to reinforce who you truly are. So, if you're ready to apply these lessons in your life, don't let this knowledge stay just in theory. Start today, right now, living with more courage, wisdom, and resilience. And if this video has inspired you in any way, I invite you to leave a like and subscribe to the channel to continue this journey with us. Here, we will always explore together ways to live a more authentic, free, and powerful life. Also, share this video with someone you know who could benefit from this message. After all, we can all grow alongside those who are also seeking to live a true life. Thank you for being here and for being part of this community that values self-knowledge and freedom. Until the next video, and remember, life is yours, and it deserves to be lived fully on your own terms.